How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the Pick Swap podcast. We're starting up our Tuesday and Thursday morning broadcast, so this is going to be a little bit of a better schedule for us. I'm James Brain. I'm here with Sean Bernard, as always. How are you, Sean?
Yeah, I'm awesome. Ready to talk about the undefeated Philadelphia Sixers, and after a great win last night, so starting off the year hot.
Yeah, man. Interesting game last night. The energy was a little bit weird. I feel like I don't know if I was just reading into it too much, but it seemed like there was a little bit of I don't want to say lack of energy, but just like it was kind of a mellow game, and that could just be from the fact that they're playing in New Orleans on game one
Yeah,
without
yeah.
Zion. It was just like not that interesting of a game. But I still enjoyed it. Obviously, the Sixers played pretty well. They ended up blowing them out into the fourth quarter, and Embiid only played 25 minutes. So good night for everyone. How'd you feel about the game as a whole last night?
Yeah, I mean, it had a little bit of a preseason vibe just because, like you
Yeah.
said, it's in New Orleans. There was not a lot of crowd there, and without Zion, they're just not really a competitive basketball team. So it was definitely kind of an easy start to our season. But I was happy with what I saw. I mean, I thought they looked good. Embiid looked good in the beginning. It's a win that he only had to play that few of minutes. And
Yeah.
there's what can you say about Furkan Korkmax, man? Absolutely unbelievable last night. Crazy the way he started the season, and point guard Furk looks like he's here to stay.
Yeah, dude. What is I saw a tweet earlier that was like um Furkan Korkmaz becoming an actual solid NBA player is like the most amazing development in the NBA this year. Like he actually went from a guy that was like arguably completely unplayable in his first like year or so, and then has turned into a guy that wins, like literally wins you ball games. Like last night, it was a close game, and then Furk went off for 12. What, like he had 12 of 15 and assisted on the other bucket. Like he
Mhm.
went crazy in that stretch. And I was talking to a couple of my roommates, and I was like, you know, there aren't a lot of other guys, like if I'm being completely honest, that are capable of doing that on this team. Like he is the only one that has like the ball handle, the like at least like the shade of athleticism to get to the rim on a pick and roll. And the shooting ability to actually get a guy to go over a screen. Like his defender
Mhm.
has to go over or he will shoot it. And he proved last night that, first of all, we've always known that he's not afraid to pull from wherever, basically. And I love that about him. But having like forcing guys to go over screens and then being able to play like the 2-on-1 or the 3-on-2 that they get, whether the corner defender shifts down to play help and he can skip past the Niang, which we saw a few times last night, a dish to Drummond, or he got to the rim a few times last night as well. So I was really um like we've had Furkan games before,
Mhm.
games where he's played really well, but I thought that that was in kind of like a vacuum. Like tonight, I saw there was high volume, good play throughout the game. Like he's legitimately a guy I think coming off the bench is going to be very, very good for them throughout this year. And maybe I'm overreacting because I love Furkan, but I thought like last night wasn't just like one of those fluke Furkan games. Like I think that's what he's going to be doing. Maybe not at the capacity of 22 a night, obviously, but like being able to at least put that pressure on defenses doing what he did last night. So I was really encouraged by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a little higher on it than I am. I think
Yeah.
there will certainly be games where Furkan looks like the Furkan we know of old times, where if his shots aren't falling, it's tough to leave him out there at the rate that he's willing to
Yeah.
throw them up, and he will just have those kind of nights. But it was exciting to see. We hadn't seen him in any sort of like ball handling sense with the Sixers. He does a little bit of that with Turkey, which they talked about a lot last night, and so he has some experience in it. But he dribbles the ball so hard, so aggressively. But he showed some. He turned the corner a couple times. That was impressive. Attacked the rim and a way that we hadn't really seen from him before. When he went up for that dunk, I almost lost my mind
Dude,
there.
I jumped out of my seat.
Yeah, and I mean, 4 for 4 from three. The 5 assists was promising. That number honestly could have been even higher if guys were knocking down
Yeah.
shots with some of the setups that he had. And I mean, the Sixers are still in need of some sort of point guard or ball handler moving forward. But Furkan showed that he can kind of fill the shoes for now. And probably one of the crazier sentences that I've ever said. But I mean, not even because it's true. But Furkan is younger than Ben Simmons, which is insane to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's weird to think about. But I was like, I honestly think that that role though isn't going to diminish that much, like no matter what happens, or maybe not no matter what happens, but in a sense where I feel like if that like that second unit, even if you replace a starting point guard and Maxi goes back to it, obviously he's going to handle the ball a lot in that second unit if he's back down there. But like again, Maxey's volume on 3-pointers isn't going to be nearly as high as Furkan. So guys can get away with going under those screens, and then it doesn't work as well with Drummond. But Maxey's another guy that looked really good last night. I obviously want to hear your take about it. He's a guy that again brings a little bit of a unique aspect, especially offensively. Even knocked down a couple of deep three balls last night. So what did you see from Maxey in that starting role? And what do you expect from him to grow on out of that role?
I thought it was a quiet, successful night. He played the most minutes on the team with 34. It was ended with 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I thought he looked good. It wasn't like a oh wow game out of Tyrese Maxey. Like he definitely didn't like capture your. He wasn't the star of the show, which is totally fine. And it had a little bit of a veteran feel to his game. He wasn't forcing things. He kind of let the game come to him, which I'm super happy with. He didn't show like crazy strides as improvement as far as running the offense, but he did enough in that regard. And I mean, once again, I think the Pelicans are a bad team, so it's too tough to fully judge off this. But I was happy from Maxey's first start of the year and what I saw from that. So positive signs moving forward.
Yeah, man. And to say it wasn't like a standout game from Maxey and he had 27 and 5, like I think that's a great statement in and of
Yeah,
itself because like he's a second year guard. He is putting up 20 points in game 1, and again, like he was but like Nikhil Walker-Alexander, a very good player. He's very surprising. Like he caught my eye last night, specifically.
mm-hmm.
And like they have some decent guard, like Devontae Graham. Like these are decent
Right.
guards, guys that at least have been around, know what they're doing. And Maxey, went toe to toe with them. I thought he did a good job. Like just that burst to the basket, like having Embiid stand out on the 3-point line and giving him some space to get downhill. There's some times where he forces that a little bit. He got fouled on one. He gets mugged like all the time, and
Yeah.
he doesn't get any respect from the referees. That'll come, I'm assuming. But yeah, I thought I liked Maxey's game last night. And again, like when you looked at the stat sheet and you're like, oh wow, he is 20. Very much like a Tobias-esque 20-point game from
Yeah, I agree.
Maxey. Like you kind of just like forgot about it, and then he had 20. But like if he's gonna be able to do that, obviously I don't expect him to put up 20 a night.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's gonna be able to do that consistently, where he's just attacking when the opportunities present themselves, he's so good with the floater that he like anytime he gets downhill, there's a threat for him to score inside the free throw line. So I really liked what I saw from Maxey, and I'm expecting him to, with the 3-point shot kind of developing still to get comfortable because there was a few that I thought he passed up last night.
Yeah, and Sixers had 4 scorers and 20 points, which is great. We don't see that very often with Tobias, Embiid, Furkan, and Maxey. So what a squad there. Overall, a great team win with a lot of things. Embiid, I was also super happy with. The ended with 22 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. There was a little bit of a triple-double watch for Embiid in the
Yeah.
beginning there. Ultimately, the game, him not having to come in the fourth quarter is huge, but we had a little bit of a roller coaster with like him looking phenomenal in the first quarter and then getting a little medical attention on his knee, which it didn't look like anything. That's just kind of the ebbs and flows that comes with Joel Embiid. But again, he's the superstar we want him to be, and a positive night out of him as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the only thing that I picked up on last night when I was watching that game is he did not, and maybe this is just the fact that like Valanciunas is like a pretty physically demanding player. Like he puts a lot of pressure on him. First of all, Embiid played fantastic defense on Valanciunas. And
Yeah.
like Valanciunas is a very like uh imposing player. So like offensive rebounds, offensive glass, like he's always there. So Embiid did a very good job in that sense. Um, but he didn't go to the free throw line a lot last night. He didn't like. I don't think that he wanted to. Maybe I don't want to say he didn't want to, but he did. He just didn't go down to the low post and like bang for a little bit because we've seen him do that a bunch. But I thought he settled a good amount. Because he's such a great shot creator. He's such a great shooter. That like I think he gets caught up right there. And that's the only thing that I could say about him last night is that he just settled for jumpers a little bit too much, which he does do sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have an issue with it. It's crazy to me. Valanciunas is like one of the bigger center matchups that Embiid will face, and he still looked like
Yeah.
massively bigger than him, which is cool. He held him, I think it was 3 for 16 from the field, which is absurd from a center. and Valanciunas missed a bunch of easy ones, so that's not entirely on Embiid for giving credit there, but he for sure won that matchup. I don't honestly don't have an issue with the settling for jumpers. He didn't get him to go as great of a rate as I guess we would have hoped last night, but just like the how much that saves his body from having to bang every time in the post, and the longevity that the potential for it is when he just is able to kind of float over and hit that two rather than bang 3 steps and spin and turn and all that. Like, I don't have an issue with the premise of it, especially in a game where we ended up blowing him out anyway. So it wasn't something that we need a super draining performance out of Embiid. And to me, he did all he needed to do. And there's certainly more in the tank for games moving forward.
Yeah, no, and I didn't say that to like say I had a problem with it. I just thought that was like the one thing that I noticed was he was kind of
Yeah.
avoiding that. And like maybe for a good reason, like maybe that's part of their plan. It's just like right now, like we're going through this season with the intention of making a playoff run one way or another. So like we're gonna like, and the fact that like he was already getting his knee checked out is just like it's a little ominous. It's a little bit scary. From like the viewership point of view, just kind of like he probably it doesn't seem like he like thought too much about it. He didn't like say anything about it.
Yeah,
But
no.
yeah, I was I mean, I'm encouraged with Embiid every time and coming out hitting 2 threes, banking one in, like that's just Joel. I'm super excited for him to continue this season. I think that with this spacing, that's like every time guys come in now, like when Niang comes in, who like we can talk about in a sec because and like I'm on the minivan now. Like I'm very much a fan of George Niang. So like having guys that come in and do what he does and just give him so much space to operate, whether it's in the post or in the mid post or facing up and trying to score that way. I think it's just as much as all of this has sucked, I'm very excited for the progression of them to like grow with 4 shooters plus Embiid on the floor because I feel like that's going to happen pretty often.
Yeah, and cool that he just kind of has the freedom that he's earned at this point.
Yeah.
Just like it looked like it. I mean, he for sure was out there running the show, doing whatever he wanted. There was a little too much ball handling, too much dribbling for my liking, but that kind of just comes with the territory of the roster lacking that area right now, which I think we'll fix once the inevitable trade chip does fall. But I think Embiid's gonna have fun out there this year. I think like this is the most free I've ever seen him play basketball with just looking at the 4 shooters around him, allowing him to do whatever he wants, go about like whatever means of scoring or playing that he thinks is effective. And he's earned that right. He's deserving of it and he's ready to produce in it. So I love the way this season is set up for him. He's going to see more space this year than he's had throughout his whole career. And I mean, I'm excited about like the output that's going to become as a result of all that.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see him bring the ball up, the
Point guard
bring the
Joel.
ball, yeah, and then just pull up for a three very casually, and then the next possession does it again and breaks his defender down and gets a foul going to the line. Like it's like, what does this man do? Like, obviously it's not a bad thing at all. He was successful in it, but like, oh my gosh, if that's something that he's gonna end up being able to do, like everyone's already in pretty good trouble with having to face Embiid. But if he's able to bring the center out to the 3-point line and break him down with a couple of dribble moves and get to the rim, like everyone is it's a nightmare for opposing defenses for sure. Um to move on to our other 20-point scorer, a guy that like literally like Tobias to me didn't exist in last night's game and still came out with 20 and 12. Like I don't what did you see from Tobias? I honestly like he a very forgetful 20 for him, which is
For
like
sure.
which I can't say is a bad thing because he still got 20, but like there were some times that he was missing shots that he normally makes, just getting into a flow, and he was still able to, pull 20 points out of the hat, just like out of nowhere. So what did you take away from Tobias's game?
Yeah, I thought it was an on-brand performance just as far as the quiet production. It definitely felt in game that he wasn't getting the roles that he usually gets, and he missed a couple that like felt like they usually go in. But I mean, you can't argue with the results he got there. Uh, it's going to be interesting. You saw last year how it was structured with kind of the Tobias and bench players, and Tobias is going to need to continue to step up, even with the absence of, especially with the absence of Simmons, that he becomes that number one option on like that kind of roster, and I think that's gonna be his role again this year. But I mean, again, it felt like there was not a lot of Tobias going on, which you can't argue when you have the points there. But he definitely didn't feel as if he took over by any means.
No, it was I mean I'm expecting more from him this year. Like
Yeah.
naturally, I feel like a lot of us are. So as great as the quiet 20 pieces are, I really need to see some more like. I mean, and I'm not like down on him by any means. It's game one, and I think
Yeah,
they're
and
still kind of
to be
figuring it all
fair,
out.
like, it was a blowout win, like, there wasn't a lot that was needed to be done. Like, everything that was
Yeah,
needed to be done was certainly taken care of, so it's not like there was stuff left empty or anything like that. It's tough to judge off one game, and there's a lot more moving forward, so he wasn't needed to be a loud presence and any
yeah,
more points that he poured on, so it was perfectly fine.
yeah. No worries with Tobias. It's just hoping that he continues like because like what do you think like for the Sixers to actually be like consistently good against without Simmons before a trade even happens. Like Tobias has to like put some more points in his bag, right? Like he has to be the next contributor to step up a little bit more, right?
I think it has to be like he has to be capable of kind of running an offense through him in the same way that Embiid is. When we think about the Embiid and four shooters, like I think Tobias is going to look at to be that guy in the second unit, and a similar premise of like how he loves his post up mid range, and that's kind of his bread and butter to his offense. To him going knocking down, banging, and doing that, and waiting if the defense collapses and kicking out in the same way that Embiid does, and if he can produce to the level that's at least respectable on that end, and be that much of an option with the second unit, then I see this offense working. Like that it's not there's obviously massive differences in their game, but as far as how the offense can run, there's not a lot of difference between Embiid or Tobias as the focal point.
Yeah, I totally see that too. And as long as like he's so efficient in the post in that area that I look forward to it when he like is able to. But like he kind of got not pushed around, but like he got handled well by Josh Hart last night, which is something that like I feel like he should have physically asserted a little bit of dominance on a guy like Josh Hart. And he's a good defender and a solid build guy. He's not easy to push around, but like Tobias is also a little bit bigger and
Hmm.
stronger. So I was expecting a little bit more, but like again, like you said, it's game one. They ended up blowing them out. It really he still ended up with 20 and 12. So like there's not too much
Yeah.
to complain about from that aspect. But to go on to our well, let's talk about both these guys in the same thing because the Sixers only shot 10 threes at half. They were 5 of 10 at the half, which like we're looking for a little bit more than that, especially when like you saw the way the end of that first half ended. They just got clogged up. They didn't score that much. Um, and so Seth Curry finished with 10 points and Danny Green finished with 0, like not even a stat. So he was running
Mhm.
around getting cardio last night. From those two shooters, how'd you feel about their games last night?
Danny Green, not great. Again, not something I'm worried about. He's a longtime vet, old man out there. His running never ceases to amaze me. Just his wide little hips and his little waddle, and one of the least coordinated athletes that I think we've seen in this. And I mean, but that being said, like I think he'll be fine once it comes around. Once the season progresses, we get closer to playoffs, he'll be locked in for that. And if he's just shooting corner threes and doing his thing, that's all we really expect out of him. Curry, I would have liked to see a little more. There are a couple shots that not that he shied away from, but I think that he had and passed up on. And I think there's more in the tank there. I would like to see a little more in the two man game with him and Joel. There was the one dribble handoff they had early on that I really liked, and that's something that I want to continue to be built off. And I would like him to get more involved in the ball handling front as well, and just especially in the half court, just let him run a play. I think he's good enough to use his shot as a threat to create for others and do that. So I would like to see Kyrie to take a leap in the offense.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think I was surprised to see how little they like actually went to him in terms of
Mhm.
just like like actually having him create or be a part of the play, part of the action. He's a guy that is so incredibly good. Like he's such a good shot maker. Like he hit the one step back last night, and it's like one of those shots where you're like as he's taking it, you're like but then it goes in, and like he does that often enough that
Yeah.
like it's surprising when he passes up fairly open shots because it happened like once or twice last night, and it happened a lot last year where it's like he catches it on the wing. Like there was one that he actually went up
Yeah. Threw
and
down.
then dribbled. Yeah, like dude, just pull that. Like you're good enough. I don't care that I don't even care if he misses that shot. Like he missed an open like deep three when his man doubled onto Embiid. It's like there is no one in the world is upset about that shot because you're like a 50% career catch and shoot 3-point shooter. You'll
Mhm.
make the next one. Like that type of thing where I just want to see him shoot, get his volume of shots up because then you just know like his numbers, his scoring numbers are going to go up the more he shoots. So I really want to see him take tough shots. Take like not that I want him like that's the only thing he's getting, but being involved in the offense, he has such a good mid-range shot. He's a little bit like underrated as a playmaker. And again, obviously with 3-point shots, like he should be taking anytime he like thinks he can make it at all. I think he should be pulling it because he's that good. So I would love to see Seth Curry more involved going forward.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. And uh, I mean, again, not worried about these guys long
Right.
term, and a lot of their function is just the gravity that they bring, as far as not
True.
allowing guys to sag off Maxey, Embiid, and Tobias, and that's kind of what they're there for, is to anchor out the rest of the roster and just proves that threat. The production will come. Not a great performance early on, but still encouraging and great members of how the team's set up. They're still fitting for exactly what the Sixers want to do.
Yeah, for sure. And like they're at the end of the day, they're like kind of a luxury. Like you can't, you know what I mean? Like Danny Green shooting 40% on like what 10 attempts last year is like a luxury to have on your team. So
Yeah.
expecting them to get back to that point is one thing. It's one game in, so like obviously none of us are really all that concerned about it. But to move to the bench now, I guess we talked a little bit about some bench Furkan as a bench guy, but um, Andre Drummond last night he had some Andre Drummond moments,
Yeah.
the steal, the fast break, and like the pass
Euro
out of
stuff.
bounds to Furkan, like in a close game, very frustrating. In a game that ended up being a blowout, it's one of those things that you can chuckle at, but it's what do you he's 17 rebounds, which is like an
Yeah.
impressive number, and like he is imposing. Like you see him out there, like you don't forget that he's there. But he does some stupid stuff sometimes. So like I'm I'm looking forward to Drummond as a backup center, but I'm not looking forward to those Drummond moments where you're like, what are you doing? Like who told you you're allowed to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of those. I think there's gonna be multiple times a game where we're just wondering what Andre Drummond is doing out there. I mean, yesterday, the steal, the coast to coast, the euro, and the pass out of bounds there, I think was the clearest example. But there was one that he was trying to save a ball, went behind his back and threw it right to the bench. It's just like dog, like relax, like
Yeah.
play simple here. But 17 rebounds in 19 minutes is crazy. Statistically, he's gonna be. I mean, Dwight Howard was statistically pretty impressive last year. I think Andre Drummond's gonna be significantly more even. He is more physically imposing. He got away with one big shove last night, but other than that, he's way less of the unnecessary fouls as Howard, which is a huge plus. Defensively, he had a big block. It's fine. He's gonna be fine. He's gonna
Yeah.
be Andre Drummond, which is like the best talent wise backup Embiid's had, which I feel like is something that we say every year. But there is something that is to be said for like the madness that this guy creates with just his physicality, his presence, and it's gonna annoy me. It's gonna annoy a lot of us at times, just the way he plays and who he thinks he is. And there's a little bit of a disconnect between who he thinks he is and who he's expected to be on the Sixers end. But we're here for the experience, and we'll live through the Andre Drummond moments.
Yeah, for sure. I think my favorite thing that he did, and he did it multiple times last night, was screen and roll. He's like hedging. He's waiting for that guy to get downhill. The lob gets thrown, and he's able to jump back and still block it before it gets to the roller. Like Jackson Hayes had two of them, I think, where the lob went up to him and Drummond cut it off in between and was able to tip it out. Like that's the kind of thing that you're really asking for from him defensively, is to just not be like Dwight Howard got taken advantage of in a lot of those situations. Like the amount of times that I unnecessarily saw George Hill and Dwight Howard get cooked in a pick and roll last year was insane. So like
Mhm.
having a guy like Andre Drummond that's physically capable of hanging with the guard as he gets downhill, but also being able to step back and tip a lob away is really important. So I think that was my favorite thing that I saw from him last night. And just the fact that he's always like in the play at some point. Like he's always trying to make something happen on the offensive rebounds or obviously defensively in the rebounds. So I know a lot of people are just like whatever on Andre Drummond, but I like him. I think he did a pretty good job last night.
He also passes. He's trying to be a passer way too much for my liking. He
Yes.
ended with
Yeah.
3 assists last night, which like he's a pretty good passer for a big man, but he's no Nikola Jokic. He's no guy that should be running an offense. And I think there's a
Yeah.
part of him that thinks he does. He had the nice little sneak underneath to Matisse on the one last night. But there's like the more he tries to do, the greater chance there is for this to blow up. And I want to just box him into just being this is all we need a little more. And I mean, last night wasn't a great example of him stepping outside. There's certainly going to be more. He just teased that there's going to be a lot more of that going on. But I would love if we could just get 70% of Andre Drummond.
Yeah, I wish that you could just say, like, do as little as possible and you'll be totally fine. Like, if you're unnoticed on the floor, you did a great job. But yeah, you're gonna take the good with the bad, and I think
Yeah.
that the bad's gonna like the bad is gonna be more notable, but I think the good is gonna like heavily outweigh the bad. So like I'm not like excited about Andre Drummond per se, but I'm definitely like glad that he's the backup center here this year. And I'm like, again, a super cheap deal. I think he's gonna be great for this team going forward. I just am worried about him being like, it's Andre Drummond time when no one else told him it was Andre Drummond time, except for himself. So
Yeah. On the real, do you think him and Joel get along?
I think they do. I feel like obviously not in like a great way. I don't know for sure, but like from what I saw, like, in the, Lauren Rosen interviews, I don't know if you watched any of those, like, they were
Yeah.
pretty good, and she talked to Drummond, and he was just like, "I'm at a completely entirely different stage in my career. Things are a lot different for me right now than they were, like, years ago," and, like, I mean, Andre Drummond got dominated by Embiid, so
Oh
really it's
yeah.
up to him to, like, either just, like, swallow his pride and say, like, "Okay, like, I'm here to be your backup," and, I mean, I feel like there's a level of that where it's just kind of like Embiid won, like, Embiid's the MVP,
Oh
like,
yeah. No
it's
doubt.
not it's not a competition by any means, so I don't think there's any, like, bonking of heads at all.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be on Embiid's end a little bit of a, I guess, poetic justice that like he publicly shamed this man. Like
Yeah, like,
he was,
multiple times.
yeah, multiple times. The thing that I get is like there's no other guys that can be our successful backup. We have to pick this guy. One of the few guys that Joel just has openly despised, like on the internet, and talked about owning real estate in his head. And he's somehow wearing a Sixers jersey right now and out there. He also kind of has the weird effect that like I guess Drummond is one of the few guys that I still get frustrated when he does good. It's just kind of like, all right, that was good. No, that's it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's very weird to root for him. It really
yeah,
is because it's like he's always been a guy, like, that didn't bother me that much because he was never very good. Like, I never worried about what Andre Drummond was gonna do, and he, like, might have 20 and 20, um, when he was, like, playing for the Pistons, but even then, I was like, "It doesn't really matter," so because Embiid always owned him, so
yeah.
it definitely is a weird feeling to, like, root for Andre Drummond to be a good basketball player, though. It's strange.
Yeah, I feel like they have to go at it in practice to some extent. Of there has to be moments where Embiid's just really shitting on him, and there's some sort of like I don't know something there. I feel like, but maybe that's what Embiid loves to compete. Maybe he loves that too. So maybe it was a good decision by the Sixers, and I mean certainly an upgrade on the court. And then one other guy I want to talk about was George Niang. I know you're very high on him as well. A great stuff from Niang. Ended 18 minutes, 11 points, and an assist. The threat of shooting is just what stands out to me. And there's miles of difference between him and Mike Scott. Your thoughts
Yeah,
there?
dude. Yeah, dude, he was, 3 of 4 from 3. He's a dude that, like, when he catches it, I'm confident it's going in, whereas Mike Scott, I literally never assumed one of those shots was going in. I just, like, immediately yelled short because all of his shots were short. But Niang's great, man. I really enjoy the way that he plays, his decisiveness. Uh, just, like, he knows exactly who he is. Like, that, like, if Andre Drummond had the George Niang, like, mindset of, like, play within
Yeah.
yourself, do what you're good at, and like basically be unnoticed as a player, like just do exactly what you're asked to do. Niang does that like perfectly well. I think he embodies that perfectly. I think he's a great vet. He seems like a guy that everyone enjoys being around. So I love Niang and what he can fit in basically any lineup. He can even play three. He's a good enough defender.
Yeah.
Not that you love him at the three, but he's a good athletic enough defender, strong enough defender where he can play 3-4, and we'll see what they do with him potentially at a five every once in a while. But I really like his versatility and what he brings as a shooter, like 40 plus, 42 plus percent from three. You really can't ask much more from a backup four.
Yeah, I mean, he's a shooter in whatever kind of body. He's a shooter in a minivan body there. So,
Yeah.
like the way his hands are ready and how quick his release is
Yeah.
is super cool to see. Just the movement along the perimeter was pretty good. He went to like a little kind of in the lane floater that I hadn't really seen from him before. I think there's something there. And when you think back to his Iowa State games, like in college, like he was the man for that. And I think there is a lot still to untap. I'm super hyped that Niang's here. It's weird, like the Drummond over Dwight and Niang over Mike Scott are like marginal kind of upgrades when you think about as far as a roster construction like standpoint. Like these are rotational end of the bench pieces, but it's relevant to note that they're there. And these are kind of massive upgrades between those two. And we've talked once again so much about like the on-off splits with Joel, the fall off of the bench. The all-bench lineup will forever be here to stay as long as Doc Rivers is coaching this team. So if there's better pieces in that, like that does matter. So I guess that was exciting to just kind of see the second unit like exist on its own. And we'll see what happens when Furkan's not hitting everything in his right mind, but very promising signs from first game.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think like the most notable part is like Niang's fit alongside basically anyone on this team, and Drummond as the center with everyone else. Like even if you bring all the starters back, or at least most of the starters back, are mixing in a few guys like Drummond alongside Tobias or Seth Curry or whoever it may be. Like as long as he's not on the floor with Joel Embiid, like he can get by. Like they can do that. Whereas like Dwight was just not capable of doing that. Mike Scott like put him next to Embiid, and it was just like a nightmare because nobody cared if he shot. Like that's the type of thing, like the upgrades that you get with those guys. And even though they are like kind of like second thoughts almost in terms of like free agent signings, I think Niang's going to be like he's perfect for this team. He really is. And I think that that upgrade is going to be significant throughout the year. And
And
before we go, like, I'm sorry, do you want to go? Go
yeah,
ahead.
one more thing. Isaiah Joe, not a good Isaiah Joe game for game one. I felt bad. It looked like he was pressing a little bit out there, trying to get into it a little too hard. So he just needs to sit back, let the game come to him. They also didn't use him in any kind of like real ball handling or passing role, which I thought was something that they like built towards. So I was kind of hopeful to see that. But I mean, Furkan for sure held that role just fine yesterday. So I think Doc seems to really like Furkan, and I think that no matter like so the shift with Isaiah Joe for me was I had looked at him as such like a wing scorer and with that, and then I that like in the Furkan Matisse competition, and then I kind of shifted to looking at him in kind of like the ball handler guard, which would be more of the Maxey Shake kind of competition for minutes. But then Furkan just shifted over and kind of took those as well. So I guess probably a little bit tough from Isaiah Joe's perspective for where he fits into this, but he just needs to sit back, let the game come to him when his opportunities come.
Yeah, I feel like he didn't get a lot of catch and shoot opportunities last night, which I think like easing him into this lineup or easing him into this rotation should begin with trying to get him some pretty open looks. He got a 3-pointer blocked last night. Like they were hugging him along screen, so he didn't get open that much, which is something I thought was kind of ironic because it seemed like the Pelicans were ready for like they were prepared to defend him, which is just like a funny thought considering like not a lot of people around the league know who Isaiah Joe is, but clearly like they knew that he's a shooter and what he can do off the ball. So like again, I think he's going to ease into this. I think he's going to figure it out, and like once he has one of those breakout games, I think we'll see him like finding his spots, hitting consistent shots, and getting to that point. But yeah, pretty rough game from him. He did hit the ground like really hard.
Yeah.
I didn't see it when it happened, but then when they went back when he said they were going to the locker room, it looked like it hurt. Like it looked pretty bad from like the replay. One last guy, I guess, but like we're gonna end the show with our thoughts on Ben. What's gonna happen today? But Matisse Cybele last night, like a very Matisse-esque missed three, 4 steals, and then like a backdoor cut layup.
Yeah.
Again, this is his first game back. He didn't play like at all in the preseason, so another guy that's probably just feeling it out, getting his like bearings back under him, conditioning back, and everything. Defensively, he's just like like whenever he's in the game, something is happening. Like
Yeah.
the 4 steals is just like, and like you don't even think twice about it. Like he's just making that happen all the time. Like there's just some like there's havoc happening defensively when he's on the floor, and it's just like really the only reason he's not staying on is because he's just like still not there defensively or offensively, which is frustrating. But like, do you see that as like just the biggest growth point for him this year? Like, is this going to limit his play if he's just still like consistently not there offensively?
I mean, yeah, like it will. I would like to see more like use as a screener and roller, which was done it with Team Australia this offseason. I would like Doc to incorporate that a little bit. There's much more space this year, just out of the nature of the roster. And Matisse is a guy that can capitalize on that. When we think about like years past that he's been with the team, like given like Simmons and Horford and all these names, like there wasn't enough room for him to kind of operate in kind of like a Bruce Brown kind of role that was seen with the Nets. And I think he kind of can this year, and a guy that kind of can muck it up underneath, play like a big man and kind of like a guard his body and sit at the dunker spot and cut. He's a great cutter, cut as much as he can. Let me see the effort, and I would love a screen and roll. So I think there's more to untap there. I was a little disappointed with the game from Matisse just because there wasn't really any growth in those areas in game one, but 81 more games to go, so not
Yeah.
too caught up on it.
Yeah, 81 more. What a way to put it. It's definitely start of the season felt kind of surreal last night. It was like it like had that preseason feel still, and Mark Zumoff not being there. I thought Kate Scott did a very good job, but like
Me
Mark
too.
Zumoff, not hearing his voice is still kind of like off-putting as a fan, like watching NBC Sports and not hearing that. But yeah, Matisse is gonna grow. I think like we saw him in those areas a little bit more. Like he missed one of those like floater things, like it was a bad shot. Like it went from like being a pretty close like 5-footer to like a 9-10 footer because he like faded away, which I don't know why he would ever do that considering he's like 6'5" with a 7-foot plus wingspan, and like just doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, you definitely need to just like the threes that he's taking should be very open and limited, but otherwise like he should be getting down in the trenches and just being like one of those like just havoc causing players down low. So
Yeah.
still love the defense from him, obviously, and just like that aspect is never going to go away. So to wrap it up here, Ben Simmons served his suspension last night. Shams reminded us all that Ben Simmons like reportedly is willing to do whatever it takes to get out of Philadelphia. So what happens with Ben today, tomorrow, going forward? Now that he's served his suspension.
Yeah, willing to do whatever it takes except just show up and play basketball. So I don't know. I don't think this is. I think there's a lot more of this to come. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
more of showing out drama. I think there's going to be some sort of long term suspension somehow that incorporates itself. I just can't see this guy taking the floor with this team, and he clearly has no interest in being there. I was very happy from the Sixers' perspective that even with all the nonsense that's gone on this offseason and then kind of the cloud that's been hanging over their head, like they looked focused. They went in on a mission yesterday. They took care of business. It was a very business-like win yesterday. So I was very happy to see that like the Simmons stuff wasn't affecting that and overclouding it. I guess he comes to practice. I guess he kind of participates. I would be surprised if there's as clear of like a thrown out of practice unless he causes a whole scene again, in which case then Doc has every right. But I think there's going to be some give and take from the Sixers that I just don't think this is over yet. Like I just think this is going to continue to drag on and just get uglier and uglier, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. Yesterday was a frustrating day because like all I wanted to do was talk about the game, and all anyone else wanted to talk about was Ben Simmons and like all this nonsense, which is just something that's going to be like a shadow or like a cloud like hanging
Yeah.
over us all year or as long as he's here. But again, I agree with you. I don't think this is over by the end of this week or like by the end of next week, or I don't know. Like I think this probably lingers for a while until the Sixers really feel like they're getting the necessary return in whatever trade that they're willing to make. Like that is the unfortunate part about it. But I don't know, man. I think like I could honestly see like the league stepping in, suspending him, and like them just moving on for now. Like just moving forward with him not around, but still technically like on contract with the Sixers. So it's ugly. It's only gonna get uglier. It's only gonna get worse and more annoying, which is the worst part. But um at least we know that Morey's gonna do his best to get whatever deal he thinks is correct, or at least like worth it on whatever return he may get.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that Maury's still hanging in there, not giving in to Rich Paul or any of the everything that's gone on. So I'm excited to see what the news is coming out of Sixers camp today because there's something every day. But let's see what Simmons does if he shows up. I honestly, I wouldn't even put it past at this point if he just that was the last time he steps foot in the Sixers facility and he's just going to wait for the NBA to kind of get involved because that has to be coming just based on like, I mean, he's under contract. The Sixers are trying to work with him here, and it's just so frustrating that this is the path that it's going down.
Yeah, no, it's just stupid. It really is. Like it's just a very like childish interaction by a bunch of grown men. And it's just I don't know. I'm just like I'm very done with it. Like I'm very just done talking about it. Like it's been a miserable experience since the beginning of it. I guess the final question that I'll ask with you, like just so we can end this out, but like do you wish that they just made a deal in July? Like and just got it over with then?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I was when we throw it back to the Harden trade that almost happened, which I think is kind of the root of the whole relationship kind of cracking. Like I was on board with it then. I wish it happened, and I think Maury and everybody else was as well. So I don't think it's their fault for it not getting done. The Rockets seemed to back out last minute, but I I didn't expect for it to go this sour this quick, and just like I always thought that there would be like at least kind of the hope of repairing things this year, and that he would at least be somewhat taking the court and showing something. The fact that there's been none of that, like I I would take like the CJ McCollum or the Malcolm Brogdon or any of those deals, which we kind of hated at the beginning, looks so appealing right now.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, this team is in need of a ball handler. Like that was pretty evident last night. Like there were a couple of times they got pressured in the backcourt and turned it over. But again, it's something that's a work in progress and it's something that probably will get like patched up once this deal is made. But it seems like it's probably not ending. This saga is not ending anytime too soon. But for that being said, I think we can just wrap it up here. We're gonna be Tuesday, Thursday from here on out. So the Sixers play tomorrow night in at home against Brooklyn on national
Yeah,
television. So you're sure to hear a lot of talk about Ben Simmons. I'm kind of concerned about what the crowd is going to be like, because
yeah,
I think there's going to be some obscenities
for
and some
sure.
things that are heard on the national television that I just like am going to hate having to like represent because I think they're going to be saying some outlandish shit because why Philadelphia fans will do anything else. So I mean, I guess how do you feel about that game? Are you expecting a win?
Probably not, but I'm not counting it out. I think it's gonna be a fun game. It's gonna be a much bigger test than last night was with the Pelicans. I think that somehow, some way, there's Ben Simmons is not in the building for that game. So let the crowd let it fly then.
Yeah, I really do doubt that he's in the building for that. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit ridiculous. Otherwise, I think it'll be ridiculous either way, honestly. So, we'll definitely see what happens. We're pretty excited for it. Check us out on our airspace. I put some out yesterday. So we're gonna be doing pregame chat rooms. So talk to us about how you're feeling about the game, and then postgame chat rooms as well. And then we just have like a regular one that we have going as well that I'll share today. So if you guys have any questions for the podcast, about the Sixers, or just about us or whatever, I just want to talk NBA. We're all down for that. So send us a chat, talk to us, hit us up, do all the good stuff. Follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1. Follow me at JSBrain17. Follow the pod at Pick Swap Pod. And we'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.